We begin tonight with a question. Is the U.S. close to war with Iran? Tensions between Tehran and the West continue to escalate. Recent events show both countries are engaging in a serious, dangerous political game. Just this past week.
For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with a trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words.
Starting in March, 2 months from now, Google officials say they'll start combining information about what we all search, what we watch on YouTube, and how we use dozens of other Google services. And they'll combine this information all in one place. That is, if you have a Google account.
U.S. internet blackout on March 8th raises concerns. A disturbing Ministry of Trade report circulating in the Kremlin today is raising serious concerns over the United States' plan to shut down significant parts of the internet on 8 March in a move many Russian experts warn could be a prelude to massive attacks against the growing number of dissidents in that country. According to this report, the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) will unplug on 8 March the domain name system DNS servers it set up to replace rogue DNS servers that sent victims to malicious sites. A report on InfoWorld said the removal of this temporary fix may affect a substantial number of users, as half of Fortune 500 companies and U.S. government agencies are infected with the malware, not to mention tens of millions of privately owned American computers.
Since the early morning hours of Friday, the internet has effectively been shut down in Egypt. And let me show you a visual representation of what happened. This is a Google graphic showing what internet traffic usually looks like per day in Egypt. That's earlier in the week. We get to the early morning hours of Friday, it plunges, virtually flatlines. It's stayed that way ever since.
Since late last week, most Egyptians have been cut off from the internet. One service provider did stay online, allowing a tiny amount of traffic to get through, but late Monday night, Egypt pulled the plug on that as well.
Bill called the Cybersecurity Act of 2009. It was put forward earlier this year. It's a bipartisan bill by Senators Jay Rockefeller, a Democrat of West Virginia, and Republican Olympia Snowe of Maine. It would allow the president, as you mentioned, to declare a cybersecurity emergency and to do what's necessary to respond to that emergency, including taking control of the internet if he feels that's the right move.
I've heard the comparison, Catherine, about, President Bush grounding all the planes on 9/11. On 9/11.
On 9/11.
On 9/11.
I've heard the comparison, Catherine, about, President Bush grounding all the planes on 9/11, that if there was some kind of cybersecurity threat, that the White House, the folks who are writing this bill, believe he should have the ability to do that. Is that right?
That really is the best analogy. When the planes were grounded on 9/11, it would be something similar with the internet. The bottom line for most people is that the type of attack they're worried about in the future would really have two elements to the attack. It would begin with a cyber attack which would cripple communication between government bodies or even first responders, and then there would be a follow-on attack, a sort of conventional attack that would be almost impossible to respond to because you don't have the communications.
Must be Xerxes.
Come, Leonidas. Let us reason together. We're defiant in the face of annihilation, in the presence of a god. Presence of a god. Presence of a god.
There are a lot of other headlines I'd like to ask you about. One in particular seems to be building tension between Israel and Iran. It seems now the Israelis are signaling that they may act and conduct a strike inside Iran at their nuclear sites sooner than later. Do they have...
to declare a cybersecurity emergency and to do what's necessary to respond to that emergency, including taking control of the internet if he feels that's the right move.
So what would it mean? You know, I've heard the comparison, Catherine, about, you know, President Bush grounding all the planes on 9/11. On 9/11.
On 9/11.
On 9/11.
Extraordinary revelation from the Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, believing that Israel could strike Iran this spring.
This spring. This spring.
Israel could strike Iran this spring.
Fox News Alert, a bipartisan group of senators on Capitol Hill sending a strong warning to Iran. They are introducing a resolution backing the use of U.S. military force. U.S. military force.
U.S. military force. U.S. military force.
To stop Iranian leaders from getting their hands on nuclear weapons. The senators are making it clear the time for talk is running out.
Distraction by negotiation while you become a nuclear power is not an option for you.
Do the right thing, and you can avoid consequences that are unpalatable to you as well as a last resort for us.
We will end their nuclear weapons program. This is a deadly serious moment.
This is a deadly serious moment.
The senators are right. The clock is ticking. Iran has to do the right thing and abolish its nuclear program. Otherwise, military action against Iran will be inevitable. And I assure you, Megan, that if the U.S. does not do it, and I hope they do, Israel will.